Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to this presentation in which I will continue with the discussion on the topic system development. This is part 2 of a 4-part series of presentations on this topic. The title of this presentation is Stages of System Development, with our focus being on feasibility study and information gathering. My name is Meme JM, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. In this presentation, I will therefore look on the principles or considerations when developing a new system, the challenges in developing a new system, the stages in system development, or what we call the system development life cycle, problem recognition and definition, and lastly, I will look at information gathering. Let's commence by looking at the principles or considerations when choosing a new system. The 10 main principles or recommendations that one must put into consideration when developing a new system are: number 1, you should make sure that all users find the system usable. Number 2, make sure that you understand the problem. Number 3 is to identify the requirements fully and get them agreed by the client. Number 4 is to document all your work clearly as you do it. Number 5, have all your work checked to an agreed standard of quality at every stage. Number 6, be systematic. Number 7, be creative, but make sure that your creativity works. Number 8, allow for future changes of your new system. Number 9 is to break down the problem into manageable tasks and carry them out in a planned and methodical way. And number 10 is to make sure that the system is ready and it's meeting the user's needs exactly as required. My dear students and the rest of the learners, even after making those considerations or adhering to the principles, there are certain key challenges that you are bound to face, or that systems analysts or developers usually face when developing a new system. Some of the challenges include: number 1 is financial constraints. This is because money is never enough, and therefore, regardless of the type of organization that you may be developing a system for, or that may be developing a system, it is bound to experience certain financial problems in relation to development of the new system. This is usually because many organizations usually do not know in advance the extent to which they are going to involve their finances in development of a system. And sometimes, based on the level of the system or the complexity of the system, an organization is bound to experience higher financial constraints than those which they might have initially set aside for the system. The second challenge is lack of enough expertise. This is because you may be having certain staff that you may think and feel that they are competent enough to assist you or the organization develop a new system, only to realize that in the process of developing this system, the staff that you have lack certain knowledge in relation to developing a certain portion of the system. Or the staff might lack the knowledge altogether, and therefore you may start searching for or looking for people that are competent or that will be able to develop a system that meets your organizational needs. And this process of searching for these professionals, this process of searching these experts may be quite involving. It might take a lot of time, in addition to costing you resources. And therefore, lack of enough expertise is usually a great challenge when it comes to developing a new system. Number 3 is lack of appropriate technology. This is because the level of technology that an organization may be having or may be possessing by the time they are thinking of developing a new system might not be appropriate for use in the new system. In fact, other than the existing technology being inappropriate in the development of the new system may even not be able to make use of the existing technology, and therefore the organization has to look for or purchase or seek for new technology that will be able to match with the new system. And therefore, a new system may require new technology, which the organization might not be possessing. And therefore, this means that when the new system comes into play, the existing technology may get outdated and useful. And therefore, the organization may require to acquire new technology. And therefore, lack of appropriate technology to support the new system is usually a big challenge, especially when it comes to developing a new system or modifying the existing system to meet the current user needs. So those are the 3 main or key challenges in addition to others. Let's now focus on the stages in system development. The main stages in system development, as depicted by the structured approach, include the following. My dear students and the rest of the learners, if you don't know what structured approach is, I kindly request you to visit Emily Swap ICT YouTube channel and listen to part 1 of the 4-part series in this presentation, because it looks at the structured approach, or what we call structured theory, in depth. So, the main stages in system development as depicted by the structured approach include: number 1 is problem recognition and definition. The second stage is referred to as information gathering. The third stage is requirement specification, or what we call the system analysis. Stage 4 is system design, while stage 5 is system construction. Stage 6 is on system implementation, and stage 7 is system review and maintenance. So these are the 7 key stages that form what we refer to as the system development life cycle. Therefore, developing a new system is a multi-step process through a number of phases, which are popularly known as system development life cycle, which we abbreviate as SDLC. The system development life cycle is basically used to develop a new system from scratch. During the active life cycle of a system, analysts may often repeat one or more of the system development life cycle steps in order to make corrections before going too far. The earlier the detection of errors, the easier it is correcting them and finally producing a reliable product. The system development life cycle divides the life of an information system into 2 major parts, which are: number 1 is the development stage. The development stage entails step 1 to 5 or phases 1 to 5 in the system development life cycle, while stage 2 or phase 2 or part 2 entails or is called the operation and support stage. This usually includes stage 6 and stage 7 in the system development life cycle. Therefore, the system development life cycle can be diagrammatically represented as follows. Number 1, or phase 1, is problem recognition and definition. Number 2, we move to information gathering. After that, the next step is requirement specification. The 4th phase or step or stage is system design. Then we move to stage 5, which is system construction, followed by system implementation and testing as phase 6. And lastly, we move to system review and maintenance. However, with the time, as the time passes and as various changes occur within the environment, after undertaking the system review and maintenance, the system analyst may then recommend problem recognition and definition, or the new problem that has emerged from this existing system to be analyzed further. And therefore, from system review and maintenance, we move back to problem recognition and definition. And therefore, the cycle repeats again. My dear students and the rest of the learners, kindly remember that the problem recognition and definition, information gathering, the requirement specification, the system design, and system construction form the development phase or form the development part of the system development life cycle, while system review and maintenance, together with the system implementation and testing, form the operation phase, which we have called the operation and support stage. And therefore, these 7 phases or stages in system development life cycle are grouped into development part and the operational part. Let's look at problem recognition and definition. This stage can also be referred to as preliminary survey and feasibility study. The purpose of preliminary survey is to establish whether there is a need for a new system, and if so, the analyst specifies the objectives of the system. The purpose of feasibility study is to investigate the project in sufficient depth in order to be able to provide information that either justifies the development of the new system or shows why the project should not continue. The findings of the feasibility study are presented to management in the form of a report, which will make appropriate recommendations. If the report finds favor within the management team, or if the report finds in favor of the project, then the senior management may decide to move to the next phase or the next stage. Therefore, the 2 main questions that an analyst seeks to answer during problem recognition are: number 1, is the project worth pursuing? Number 2 is the project worth looking at? After this, the system analyst has to define the scope of the project and establish the constraints, the budget, and the available schedule. Therefore, problem definition, also called problem analysis, is the process of identifying the problem, understanding the problem, finding out if there is a possibility of getting a solution therefore or thereafter, and lastly, finding out any constraints that may limit the solution. This stage requires the analyst to find out as much as possible about the current system in order to draw up a good and relevant proposal for the new system. After this, several alternatives are modeled and the right solution is chosen. In this first stage, a feasibility study is carried out. A feasibility study is a special study carried out in order to establish the costs and benefits of a new system. A new system will only be developed if its benefits are more than its costs. The feasibility study can also be said to be an evaluation of a system request in order to determine whether it's worthwhile to proceed with the project. That is, whether it is feasible or whether the project is feasible to pursue. Therefore, the aim of a feasibility study is to provide a clear statement of the purpose of the proposed system and its practicability. The feasibility of a system is assessed in 4 main ways. These are: number 1, operational feasibility. Operational feasibility establishes the extent to which the users are comfortable or happy with the proposed or new system. Here, the analyst finds out if the management is ready to support the development of the new system and if they have a good will to provide the necessary funding. Number 2 is schedule feasibility. This establishes whether the development of the proposed system will be accomplished within the available time. Number 3 is economic feasibility. This establishes whether developing the new system is cost-effective by analyzing all the costs and benefits of the proposed system. And number 4 is what we call technical feasibility. This establishes whether the technology available is sufficient or can be upgraded for the new system. It also seeks to find out whether the staff have relevant technical skills to develop and use the new system. So, the main reasons for instigating a system project are, number 1, improved service to customers. Number 2 is better performance. Number 3 is need for more information for decision making. Number 4 is the need for stronger controls. Number 5 is reduced costs. An initially feasible project can later fail or be rejected because of any of the following reasons. Number 1 is the changes in the conditions as the project progresses. Number 2 is shift in economic condition. Number 3 is higher costs than initially anticipated. Number 4 is loss of confidence in the project manager or users. Number 5 is inadequate user involvement. Number 6 is continuation of a project that should have been cancelled. Number 7 is failure of some portions of the new system to fit together. Finally, the 6 main considerations that must be understood in the problem recognition and definition stage for system development are: number 1 is whether a new system is required. Number 2 is whether a new system is worth pursuing. Number 3 is the scope of the project. Number 4 is establish the constraints, the budget, and schedule. Number 5 is to identify the problem and understand it. Number 6 is to come up with a relevant proposal for a new system. Let's now look at information gathering. This is also referred to as fact-finding or system investigation. At this stage in system lifecycle, a detailed study is conducted. This study is far more detailed and comprehensive than the feasibility study. The purpose of this study or this phase is to fully understand the existing system and to identify the basic information requirements. This requires a contribution from the users, both of the existing system and of the proposed system. If the system analyst has been given a green light to go ahead with the development of the new system, then he or she starts to sample the data. Sampling is a process of selecting a certain population to interview, observe, or investigate further for the purpose of obtaining right information to aid in the development of a new system. This process of sampling should be carefully meditated in order to ascertain that, number one, the cost of the project is kept low, which is the key to the success of the project. Number two, biasness is kept at minimal or no biases at all. Number three is the sampling process does not delay information gathering. The analyst should be able to make a careful but prompt decision as to which documents are appropriate for analysis, which group of people to observe, interview, or question through questionnaires. And it would also be good to state as to which documents or groups to ignore. Sampling tends to speed up information gathering because the analyst can be able to, number one, choose the type of sample so long as it's convenient. Number two is determine who to examine based on those affected the most. Number three is decide on the size of the sample, less than the total population. Number four is decide on the kind of data to be collected and examined. That is, it is important that relevant data is collected. So, the 6 main methods that can be used to gather facts concerning the current and the proposed systems are: number one is interviewing. Number two, questionnaires. Number three, observation. Number four is record inspection. Number five is user workshops. Number six is automated methods, amongst others. Let's look at interviews. An interview is a powerful method of gathering information in which the analyst or interviewer has a face-to-face communication with the affected personnel, who in this context I'm referring to as interviewee, thus enabling him or her to get first-hand information about the current system and be able to fully understand the feelings of the users concerning the proposed system. The two main types of interviews are: number one, structured interview. This is an interview where the questions are predetermined and the interview is carried out in a fixed format. During this interview, a specific set of questions are asked, and depending on the answers, the interviewer would ask additional questions in order for the interviewee to clarify the answers given. The second type is unstructured. This is an interview in which questions are not predetermined and they are asked as per the flow of the conversation. So it gives the interviewer a chance to freely lead the interview process, which at times gets out of focus and lose direction, as well as forget to cover the areas that are necessary to gather information. However, the interviewee is more at ease during the unstructured interview and may actually reveal more useful information than may not have been obtained using the structured interviewing techniques. It is therefore advised that you combine, or the analyst combines, both the structured and unstructured interviewing techniques during information gathering process. And during interviews, the facts about what is happening come to light, together with the opinions of the interviewee regarding weaknesses in the system. The personal contacts are important in getting the cooperation of the people involved and in getting them the feeling of having made a substantial contribution towards the design of the new procedure. It is vital to gain the confidence of the individuals concerned at this stage in order for all the facts that are required to be gathered. The interview process requires good communication skills, especially the listening skills. The interviewee must take into account the following barriers between the interviewer and the interviewee. Number one is personalities. Some people, based on their backgrounds, have different ways of expressing themselves, either in asking or answering the questions. Number two are the values. What one values may not be what the other person values. And therefore, the type of questions asked matters a lot. Number three is opinions. Different people may have different opinions over the same matter. In that case, there will not be any understanding of each other between the individuals involved. Number four is motivation. The people who are motivated may provide more information during the interview than those individuals who are less motivated. For example, many of those who are interviewed may not like the idea of developing a new system, knowing that the automated system may replace them from their jobs and thus may give inaccurate answers to the questions put across by the interviewer. So, when planning for an interview, you need to, number one, clarify this problem and what is to be investigated. Number two is find out as much as possible about the subject area. Number three is prepare a list of the many questions. Number four, ensure authority to interview has been obtained. The following are therefore the guidelines to follow when executing an interview. Number one, the interviewee must be informed in good time and the topic of discussion communicated accordingly in order to allow for adequate preparation. Number two, ensure that the interviewee is at ease before embarking on the main fact-finding. Number three, always avoid personal biases in your questions and perspectives. Number four, let the interviewee tell his or her own story in his or her own words. Number 5, do not ask leading questions. Number 6, ask one question at a time. Number 7, keep the sequence of questions logical. Let the questions be systematic. Number 8, you should be careful about body language and proxemics. Proxemics refers to those things or to things such as seating arrangement, the body closeness, and how people react when their private distance is violated. Number 9, avoid the role of an expert. Number 10, always be straight, forward, and frank. Always ensure that the answers are fully understood. Try to quantify vague references to percentages. Always end the interview on a pleasant and constructive note. Then at the end of an interview, you should record the data at the earliest opportunity. Number 2, check the facts as soon as possible so that you don't forget any fact that you have been given. Number 3, get agreement on the facts. The following are therefore the main advantages or benefits of an interview in comparison to the other methods of gathering information. Number 1 is that non-verbal communication like facial expressions can be used and observed. The second advantage is that the questions can be rephrased instantly for clarification and to prove the interviewee further. Number 3 is that the analyst has access to first-hand information. Number 4, the analyst is able to make the interviewee feel to be part of the system. Number 5, the interviewer is able to give the interviewee an opportunity to put forward opinions and feel free to answer the questions in any way. However, the use of an interview to gather information also has certain challenges or certain disadvantages. One of them is that it is difficult to organize interviews and are time consuming. Number 2, the interviewee may not be fully open, or he or she may not open up fully on some issues that may be personal or sensitive. Number 3 is that some interviewees tend to feel tense and not free when talking to strangers, thus may not answer all the questions genuinely and willingly. Number 4 is that the interviewer may not have good communication and listening skills. Number 5, the traveling costs to the site may be high, and therefore traveling to the site where the interviews takes place is costly. Number 6, the interviewee may be suspicious of the intention of the proposed system for fear of being displaced by the automated system. Let's now look are the second method of gathering information about the system that you intend to develop. And this method is the use of questionnaires. A questionnaire is a special purpose document containing an already set of questions that are answered by the respondents or interviewees through filling the gaps at their own pleasure. The analyst is able to gather information from several key people in the organization who may be affected by the current proposed system. The questionnaires are conducted through surveys. Predetermined questions are put on a piece of paper and set out to some people, and sent out to some people, perhaps that have been chosen randomly, who would answer the questions asked. In this kind of fact-finding technique, the responses are based on the questions asked and somehow controlling the type of answers one can give. The questions asked are either in fixed format form or free format form. In fixed format questions, the interview or the respondent responds to specific questions without elaborating further. In a way, they choose from the answers already made available, which are true and false questions, if you will. The questions in a free format form allows the interviewee with freedom to express himself or herself freely and give any idea that he or she feels is relevant to the question being answered. The questionnaires are the most practicable method of fact-finding, especially where the information is located over a widely spread geographical area, or where a large number of people are required to furnish the data. In addition, the questionnaires are the most practicable in situations where verification of data found by other means is required. Also, the questionnaires are more practicable in situations where you require 100% coverage of the respondents or the population. The questionnaires save the time of the interviews, but are difficult to design and are generally considered irksome to complete. Care must therefore be exercised over the design of the questionnaire. It must be tested and validated before it is widely used. The questionnaires can use multiple choice questions, questions that require the users to rate items or areas of concern according to their relative importance, or questions that are open-ended. The basic design of a questionnaire falls into 3 sections. These are the heading section, which describes the purpose of the questionnaire and it contains the main references. Number 2 is clarification or classification section, which contains data to be used for analyzing and summarizing the total data. And the third section is data section, which contains the data that is being sought. The main advantages of questionnaires, therefore, include: number 1, more sincere responses are possible because they are filled and returned in privacy. Number 2, the respondents can fill the questionnaire at their own pace. Number 3, they provide many people with the opportunity to provide input and suggestion. Number 4, questionnaires saves time, especially where respondents are geographically scattered. Number 5, they are very cheap to administer. The following are, however, some of the disadvantages of use of questionnaires. Number 1, it is a slow way of gathering facts. Number 2, designing questionnaires requires expertise because preparing good ones is difficult. Number 3, some questions can be easily misunderstood, hence ambiguous replies may be received. Number 4, analysis of questionnaires requires a lot of time. Number 5, the responses may be highly biased, intentionally or unintentionally. Number 6, some users are also reluctant to take time to complete a questionnaire, and many people are cautious about expressing an opinion by writing. Number 7, many respondents may not return the questionnaires even if they don't have to pay any postage, which is already provided. The other method of gathering information is observation. This is watching closely as a person performs activities in order to learn about the system, thus giving the analyst first-hand experience about the problems and exposing him or her to the system requirements. This technique is particularly good for tracing bottlenecks and checking facts that have already been noted. Long periods should be devoted to this method as it is uncomforting to those being observed and monotonous to the observer. Also, when the people are aware that they are being observed, they tend to play act and may not give the observer the true picture of what actually happens. This method is therefore best employed in conjunction with other techniques and carried out after the observer has an understanding of the procedures involved. Only then will he or she be able to spot irregularities and generally apply a seeing eye to the job. Visiting the site to observe the users without letting them know or making them become aware of your intentions as they perform certain activities might be one of the best ways of giving the analyst a chance to see firsthand the activities as they are performed. The analyst can then compare and verify the validity of the data that was collected using the other methods, such as interviews and questionnaires. It is important to know in advance the peak periods and so on, so that the data can be collected during those periods. The following is therefore a checklist of what you should do and what to look for when using this method in fact finding. Number one is the working conditions, which include light, heat, noise, interruptions, amongst the others. Number two is the layout. This entails ease of access, proximity to colleagues, filing systems, telephones, etc. Number three is the ergonomics. This entails looking at the workstation arrangement for networks, the furniture layout, adequacy of furnishings, amongst the others. Number four is the supervision in place. That is, availability when needed. Number five is workload. Whether this work is light, whether the work being executed is heavy, is it variable? Are there bottlenecks? etc. Number six is the pace and method of working. In this case, you have to find out if there are peaks and troughs of activity, and if everyone follows the same method. So, the main advantages of observation method include, number one, the validity of facts can be double checked. Number two is that the method is comparatively cheap. Number three is that observers can witness what is being done. Number four, the concepts that are too difficult for non-technical staff to explain can be easily observed. Number five is that observation helps the analyst become acquainted with operational personnel. Number six is that through observation, one can be able to correct hazy understanding or erroneous expressions. However, whereas observation is a good method of gathering data, it also carries with it certain disadvantages, which include, number one, the person who is being observed might alter his or her behavior, thus leading to wrong requirements being observed. Number two is the need to be on site consumes one's time. Number three, some activities involving different levels may be missed because at the time of observation, that may not be the peak period when many different levels are performed. The fourth method or way of gathering information is what we call record inspection. This is the process of reviewing all the documents maintained in connection with the current system so as to be able to understand the structure of the organization, its operations, and the history of the system. It is usually performed at the beginning of the system study in order to get an insight into the organization's operations before the actual analysis is carried out, or at the end, in order to compare the analysis report with the actual operations. It involves the study of the organization's charts, financial reports, formal job descriptions, procedure manuals, strategy and policy documents, reviews, and evaluation reports of the system and study, amongst others. Therefore, standing available documentation describes the current system and all its procedures, thus forming a rich source of information for the analyst. The other method of collecting data or gathering information concerning the system is user workshops. This method gets the users to participate in the analysis, and it is one of the methods that have become very popular recently. The attendees represent the various departments having an interest in the proposed system. The analyst acts as a workshop facilitator. That is a skilled job that requires the right balance between an encouraging distribution, airing of issues, and drawing the group to a consensus and decisions. The ability of this method to enable users to resolve conflicts themselves and to develop a personal commitment to the endeavor contributes greatly to its success. During this workshop, the analyst presents diagrams of data models, the data flow diagrams, issue lists, etc., and all these are discussed. The other method of gathering information is called the automated method. This method, or this is a method of collecting data where actual data is required, but is difficult to get through interviews, observation, or questionnaires. Such data may be collected using devices that automatically capture data from the source, such as video cameras, tape recorders, amongst others. Let's now look at how you prepare and present the fact-finding report. At the end of the information gathering stage, the analyst must come up with a requirement definition report, which is then presented to the management for evaluation and further guidance. This report should have the following details. Number one, cover letter addressed to the management and the information technology task force written by the person who gathered the facts. Number two, it should have a title page, which includes the name of the project, the name of the analyst, and the date when the proposal was submitted. Number three is table of contents. Number four is an executive summary, which provides a snapshot of how the new system is to be implemented. It also includes recommendations of the system's analyst, because some people will only have to read the summary in order to make decisions. Number four are the outlines of the system study, which provides information about all the methods used in the study and who, as well as what was studied. Number five or number six is detailed results of the study, which provide details of what the system analyst has found out or has found out, about the system, such as problems, constraints, and opportunities that call for an alternative. Number 7 is a summary, which is a brief statement that mirrors the contents of the report. It also stresses the project's importance. And with that, my dear students and the rest of the learners, we have come to the end of part 2 of this topic. Congratulations for learning part 2 of 4 on system development. You can now access part 1, 3, and part 4 of this series and more computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on Emily Swap ICT YouTube channel below this video. You can also subscribe to this channel by tapping on subscribe button below this video if it's not currently reading as subscribed. You can also visit and subscribe to Emily Swap Life Skills YouTube channel for free life skills, motivational, and inspirational resources. For any further correspondence, kindly write to us through the email emilyswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me and be blessed.